Welcome to day 7 of class 1 of our mindfulness course. Our final day, a conclusion and also a continuation, because here we're making a transition from practicing mindfulness to making mindfulness our way of life. And in order to do that, we're going to simplify things a little bit. During this week, we focused on various aspects of life that we could be aware of: thoughts, feelings, things that we're doing, simple things, complex things. And then we got more into a free-form awareness where we're just aware of whatever comes up. And that's going to be our basis for living a life of mindfulness. And we're going to simplify it even a little bit more by saying that our practice and our way of life is dwelling in awareness, no matter what's going on. Our practice and our way of life is simply being aware of this moment. And to continue as a way of life, living this way every day, and as much of every day as we can, we're going to need some reminders. Preferably at the beginning of each day, getting into that groove of paying attention, of being aware in a natural, gentle way. Starting off by getting up, our little routines that we do in the morning, and continuing on through the day in that way. Now, of course, there's going to be times when we get lost in thought. There may even be days when we get really busy and we totally forget about living in mindfulness. So we can use a reminder as soon as we realize that that's what we've been doing. No judgment, no shame. Because anytime that stuff happens, there's always an opportunity to come back. Any moment is a good time to come back to being mindful, being aware. I was given a little mini question when I was studying with the Quantum School of Zen. It's an old technique to come back to the moment. It's simply asking yourself, what is this? In other words, what's happening right now in this moment? So if we're off on a tangent of thoughts, or maybe we've even spent hours and hours in the day just forgetting to be aware and just kind of hung up on thinking about what we have to do and trying to get from point A to point B, and we realize that all of a sudden we can just say, what is this? So let's say I'm saying it right now. What is this? I think I hear an airplane outside. What is this? Oh, I feel a little breeze from the air conditioner on my chest. What is this? Breath. On and on like that. So from moment to moment, no matter what's going on, our way of life is to be aware of it. That includes whatever we might be doing if we're engaged in action, any kind of action. And when a thought comes in, we're aware of that. When we get a feeling, an emotion, we're aware of that. And even when we're in a difficult situation, or we have a difficult emotion or difficult thoughts, maybe we're worried about something, for example, we're aware of that as well. And what really differentiates this way of life is that we realize and we notice and we experience that everything changes, everything is impermanent. Now, of course, naturally, we tend to want to hold on to the things that we like and get rid of the things that we don't like. But in this practice and in this way of life, this awareness that we give to whatever comes up allows us to get away from that attachment and that aversion to things. So when we're observing things, when we're looking at things, when we're aware of things, we notice how they can fade, and we notice how the next moment takes over. So that can really liberate us from pain, suffering. They can liberate us from being caught up in our thoughts, where they turn into an endless train of thought. Being caught up in our emotions when they disturb us. Or being so attached to things that make us happy that we cling to them, and when they start to fade away, as they invariably will, moment to moment, then we feel bad again. So this awareness, as we said before, gives us this stability, this equanimity. And we're not hung up and living according to our preferences so much, what we like, what we don't like. We're letting everything in and observing it and being aware of it. Now, we may get the thought that this sounds like we're trying to live like a zombie. No preferences, no likes, no dislikes, not pursuing anything, not trying to get rid of something. Well, it's not that extreme. What we're talking about here is when we have this awareness and this natural letting go, we actually are more aware of our thoughts. We're more aware of the preferences. We don't try to stop them from coming into our consciousness. We don't try to stop having preferences. And we're more aware of them, and also we feel the emotions that go with them more. But the difference is we put them in a little more perspective. So we're not immediately grabbed by them. They don't rule our lives. We're able to pick and choose what we want to do. Maybe we want to express opposition to something we feel strongly against, and we can do that. But with this increased equanimity, we can do so possibly in a more constructive manner. Maybe anger won't take it over so much. And we can do it in such a way that we're not so attached, so we can move on when it's time to move on into the next moment, which is what our practice really is. Now, we did some formal practice every day this past week, and I encourage you to continue that because it really supercharges our ability to be aware and to let go, watch things fade and move on to the next moment, and to come back when we do get lost in thought. Remember, we define formal practice as just sitting there being aware. So we're not engaged in any activity other than sitting there. If you feel like you need an anchor to stay a little more focused, we can use the breath, be aware of the natural breathing, and then be aware of whatever comes into our consciousness and come back there. Or we can go free form like we did the last few days. We can also employ this question, what is this? When we find that we've been lost in thought, to break that pattern of thought and bring us right back to whatever's going on in the moment. We can practice, maybe have a time we set up, 20 or 30 minutes a day. Maybe when we have little breaks, we can do a little short practice. I find it really helpful when I first wake up in the morning to immediately go into being aware. I can feel how my body's feeling rested after a good night's sleep. Maybe I'll be aware of a sound. Maybe I'll feel some other sensation in my body. I'll be aware of thoughts that come in, and once again, allow them to fade and be aware of the next thing that comes up. That's a wonderful way to get started living this life of mindfulness right from the get-go. And then continue on when we're getting ready, cleaning up, making breakfast, etc. Good way to start the day. And as we continue living this life of mindfulness, we may notice these benefits that we spoke of all through this class. And again, as we said before, not making them into goals, but just looking at them as encouragements to continue living this way, living this life of mindfulness. Benefits like doing things better because we're aware. Being open to changes because we aren't so attached to concepts. communicating with people better because we're not so attached to concepts about them and we're more in the moment, so we can really ebb and flow with the conversation. Again, this stability, because we're not buffeted around by our emotions and our thoughts so much. And as we mentioned before, insights come when we're so open and aware. So what we're talking about here really is a different way of living. I think most of us, if not all of us, have been brought up in society to live by our preferences, to go after what we like and get rid of what we don't like, to identify with our thoughts and our emotions and our preferences and our concepts, even though these things are just concepts. And when we live practicing mindfulness, being aware, we get rid of this strong identification with these things, and we become much more free. Free to live fully, free to live each moment to the fullest, and to live from this awareness, this pure awareness. So I invite you to try it. Start today. Make mindfulness not just a practice, but your way of life. Thank you.